It is another edition, Beautifully Well Conversations with your girl, Coach Nick, and a very special guest. Dr. Daemon Jones is joining us.
Hello, hello.
Hey, we're so happy to have you with us, Dr. Day. This session is a special edition of Club Beautiful, where we bring in the experts in women health. And tonight, menopause, the menopause topic, menopause. Dr. Day has a long list of experience
Oh,
in a long list of experience in women's health. And you know what? I'm going to have you, Dr. Day, if you could do in the spirit of Goldman Sachs, that efficient EEC, share with us a bit about you so that we can hop into the conversation. Dr. Day.
thank you so much, Nick. I love being with Coach Nick and her beautifully well community. So thank you, everyone. I have been working with women over the last 20 years who aren't feeling good about something that's going on with their body, whether it's mentally, emotionally, or physically. Oftentimes it's hormonally related and they don't even know what is the underlying cause. They just know they don't feel well. There's something wrong and they're not sure exactly what it is. And I focus on helping them to understand the underlying reason of why they don't feel well, and then use lifestyle medicine as ways of supporting them to get back to wellness. So that's what I love, and that's what I do. That's my mission.
Beautiful. And today, to start out, you shared something in our last conversation a few months ago. You just helped us to put perspective around the perimenopausal phase as it lends itself into menopause. Could you, for our ladies, describe perimenopause the way you so eloquently describe it so that we can wrap our heads around what in the world is happening to those who have not yet touched menopause 100%?
Yeah, I thank you for giving me the opportunity to talk about this because I continually try to make it as easy as possible for people to understand. So I will say this: menopause and the perimenopausal transition for women can be between 4 and 7 years. And if you are a woman of color, then it can be up to 11 years. So that's a long period of time where your mind and your body changes. It's not just about your periods, but it's really about there's over 40 different symptoms that women can have, whether it's musculoskeletal symptoms, inflammation symptoms, metabolic syndrome, which could lead us into prediabetes or cholesterol like issues, symptoms. There certainly can be changes in your menopausal process. There are changes to your emotions and there are changes to your brain. And all of that happens as this hormonal process between the ages of, let's say, 45 to 55. It can happen as early as 38, but in that time frame, any of those things that are shifting and changing for us are part of that perimenopausal transition into menopause, where you're not just not having a period any longer, but your body has changed.
Um, you know, just like going through another life change and the impact that it has on us. You mentioned 40 some symptoms, everybody is different. But what are some of those symptoms that appear more often just in general? And if you're a woman going through perimenopause, like what would your just maybe a tip or two? How do you manage it? How do you get through it? Or what's your next step when you think that's the concern?
So I think that what happens with most women, since it is a very individualized process, and by the way, there isn't a test that you can take for perimenopause, menopause to let you know, okay, well, I'm here. So that can be super frustrating. So what I think most women experience is they may not be feeling like themselves. And whatever that means for that person, it might be they've gained weight, they can't lose it anymore. It might mean that their sleep is shifting or changing. It might mean that they are having aches and pains and they don't know where it's coming from. They may become more emotional than they are used to and kind of have like a short fuse. But the key thing that all women have shared with me at some point is that they are not feeling like themselves, and everything they used to do to correct whatever symptoms are bothering them, like let's use weight for example. They used to be able to detox for 4 days and then now it worked, or they could eat a certain diet and then it worked, or they could exercise a certain number of minutes, a certain number of times a week, and it's not working anymore. And they're like, I don't understand why this hasn't worked. It has worked every time I've done it up to this point. So I think the best way to help women to kind of understand, am I in that perimenopausal time, is are you starting to notice there are things that are uncomfortable for you in your body, in your mind, in your emotions, and you had tools, and now all of a sudden the tools aren't working. So that I think is the thread for all women around this perimenopausal time. And so the first thing is, once you are aware that you're in it, I think that's when people start to have their first sigh of relief. Like, what can you do? Just notice if there are things that you're not feeling good about certain aspects of your health. And then once you know that, then find a group or a person to discuss it with that is open-minded and is an expert in the perimenopausal process, who can answer a few simple questions to help you relax. Because so many times women say, I thought I was going crazy. I went to my regular doctor, I had blood work done, and everything came back normal. And so this feeling of feeling crazy, I have women that come into the practice and I'm working with them. And I might not do a test for perimenopause, but I might do a test for a particular issue that they're experiencing. And then when I'm talking to them about it, they literally cry when I am giving them their results and their treatment plan, because it's the first time they feel like someone has heard them, someone understands them, someone is not dismissing them. And from that space of relief, it is a lot easier to stick with a treatment plan, a lifestyle plan of changes, because you have hope. So I think that that's really the key. And I will say this, I'm not bashing conventional doctors. What happens is they don't get education around menopause. Most of their women's health focuses on women during their fertility and having babies, and even gynecologists that go to conventional medical schools, they get only a few hours of information about menopause. So they don't know how to help you, and they don't know what to focus on. And then there has been misinformation about studies around menopause and the menopausal transition. So they're afraid to give you recommendations around appropriate hormonal support. And that combination makes women feel unseen.
Hitting it on the nose in every angle. It's and I see the chat. I see so much happening in the chat. How important community is when we're going through this phase of life. Not everyone has a mom who could share what she has gone through or went through. And as Dr. Day mentioned, well, yeah, and then symptoms are different. And if you weren't raised by, someone in the house, mom or grandmom or an auntie who was willing to share, then where does that leave you? And this feeling of feeling crazy is real. I mean, I was driving me crazy. And I know some of us here can relate, where you wake up and you go, I'm just tired of me right now. I can't even. Woo. When if there's, you have the love of your life trying to figure out what is happening, how can I help? You can't even tell. You can't tell them how to, because you're still trying to come to grips with you. With you. Now, you mentioned lifestyle changes, and you already know how we feel about that, right? Because outside of some of things beyond lifestyle changes, what we like to refer to as lifestyle medicine, you mentioned even stress, just managing that. Sometimes that sounds too ideal, right? What you mean, if I just de-stress, or if I try to eat more foods that might not, get the cortisol running? Tell us a little bit about why it's so important to embrace some lifestyle changes.
So, I mean, this whole transition is a lifestyle change in and of itself. Our body is going through a transition, our hormones are going through a transition, our mind is going through transition, and our emotions are going through a transition. So, during this whole menopausal process, we are going through a transition. And it is normal for us to go through the transition. So that's the first thing, is that this is a normal process. Unfortunately, we can't wish it away. We can't medicate it away. Our body is changing, and it's a normal part of the process. So that's the first thing that we all need to understand. That being said, if you go into this process and you're already diminished, or you're deficient in nutrients because you've been pushing hard in your 20s and your 30s and your 40s, and you're doing that because you're pushing hard for your family, you're pushing hard for your job, or for your entrepreneurship or your education or whatever it is, and you are already coming and you don't have all of the tools that you need to help your body as it goes through this rewiring process, it's going to make symptoms uh, more exacerbated. It's going to make them worse. It's going to make them last for a longer period of time. And that's why the lifestyle changes that you make are very important. And there's some triggers that all women may experience or notice. So alcohol can be a trigger for like hot flashes, night sweats, aches and pains, not sleeping well. So a lot of people may be using that as a way of calming down at the end of the day, but having, alcohol, sugar, other things like that are exacerbating these symptoms, which if you don't sleep, how are you going to think clearly? How are you going to relate to the other people in your life? How are you going to be able to manage a super stressful situation? So this is why lifestyle is very crucial during this time, because whatever your symptoms are, however they show up, if you focus on managing your stress, getting enough sleep, eating in the right way, exercising in the right way, right? Not over exercising, right? If you're already exhausted and then you decide you're going to try to run a marathon or a 10K and you're already feeling depleted, then your menopausal symptoms are going to be worse. So when you look at your lifestyle and make changes and get new tools, then you're going to notice that your transition is not going to be as it's not going to be as debilitating or exhausting. So that's why it's key to actually think about this idea about lifestyle and really implement it. And then the other thing I'm going to say is that during this menopausal transition, women's hearts and women's souls and women's passions about themselves and the things that they've been putting off to take care of other people strongly make a play for your attention. So the more that we neglect ourselves and the things that are important for us as women, as human beings, that bring us passion, the more we ignore that, our symptoms also get worse. So we have to think about lifestyle and all of the lifestyle medicine, and we have to think about our mental, emotional lives.
Oh,
Or,
there we go.
Yeah, it's so true. It's when do we decide that life has to look a little different? That it's a new chapter. Yeah, you're still the same person. But the thought that in the way you navigated life, 20s, 30s, even early 40s, that you can still carry things that same way has to be an unrealistic approach to life, because life is a journey with milestones, right? You can't be 11 years old going into puberty and then when 21 hits still thinking the same way or doing things the same way. Now
Right.
you have to really take care of yourself. You have to have that extra little bag to take care of yourself. So naturally, as we age, I feel like the big picture here is embracing the change, trying not to run away from it, telling yourself you really are not crazy, but seeking the support that you need. But you had something else, Dr. Day. If we're already in a deficit, if we're already struggling with some health challenges, whether it's physical, mental, or emotionally, and that's common considering today,
yes.
that means, I always talk about that capacity load, right? How capacity and then that comparison to where you are in your health bank, your uh, health account, right? Not the IRA, but that what's in the holding when
Yes.
life strikes. So, tell us, give us an example. You talked a lot about some of these lifestyle changes, but I want in a chat too. I would love to hear. I know I asked you all for some questions, but it's great in this conversation to talk about also what are some of the things you have done when you recognize that you're in a place where life is changing, and how have you embraced the change, or what are you hoping to do now that you know that it's important to have a menopause plan? Like, what is this regimen? Um, you mentioned a treatment plan. Walk us through that. Just maybe every woman is different. Let's say this woman has symptoms she has to do something about. Like, we're talking the worst case scenario with what menopause has done to her. Is that a such thing?
I think that some common symptoms that are very challenging for women are not getting sleep, right? So sleep patterns can change during this time. So if we think about our lives and we think about what happens between 45 and 55, right? There are a lot of life things that are happening. Oftentimes kids are getting ready to or about to leave the nest, so you've been caring for them for a while. If you have if you're in some type of job position, you've been there long enough that you may be looking at management or C-suite of a particular situation. You might be in a relationship with a partner, which hopefully is going well, but around that time is when a lot of divorce tends to happen. So there are a lot of things that are going on, right? So have that. Then you have lack of sleep. That's a huge problem because if you're not sleeping well, then you're tired and you're not energetic and you're not thinking as well. So sleep can be an issue. If you are between the ages of 45 and 55, you might have someone put in the chat a lower sex drive. So you could be having a lower sex drive because again, you're exhausted, you're not sleeping. Women's sex drive, some of it comes from the hormonal, um, the amount of hormones that we have are estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone. And some of it comes from feeling exhausted and tired, more so than men, right? So I'll never forget the Oprah, one of Oprah's shows. She was talking a show about sex, and she told the guest was like, what advice do you give this man to help this woman with sex drive? And he's in the guest speaker, whoever the guest was like, you want sex, do the dishes. That'll help your wife get in the mood if she's not tired and exhausted all the time.
Do
So,
something that she normally would do. Take it off
right,
her plate.
get it off of her plate. So sex drive certainly can be lowered because of the amount of stress that a woman's under, but also the lowering of the estrogen levels and some lowering of the testosterone levels can also impact a woman. So sex drive is something that can happen for women. Brain fog is something that can happen for women. Lack of sleep is something that can happen for women. Hot flashes and night sweats is what a lot of women, talk about. So those would be, an example of common symptoms that often happen. And the other thing I might say is aches and pains or inflammation. So if someone is dealing with all of those things, then let's talk about a treatment plan. Like, how do we address that? And I have a menopause 3-month menopause course that I've created, and I talk about all the different areas that I'm about to describe to you as part of the treatment plan. So the first thing that we, have to think about is, how do we detoxify whatever's going on in our lives? So if we're dealing with hot flashes and night sweats and we're not sleeping well, if we remove things like sugar, and if we go for walks, right, 5 or 10 minutes, getting some fresh air, these are two examples of detoxification. If we're moving our bowels every day, like, people don't want to talk about that, but if you're not moving your bowels, then your hormones can recirculate and be unbalanced, and you can feel digestive symptoms and full and bloated and not feel well. So you have to make sure that you're eliminating. So this detoxification process of the body can make a huge difference and can reduce your hot flashes, night sweats, inflammation, and help you to sleep better. Then we have to think about detoxifying our environment. Is there a place in our home that's for us, right? So we want to think about detoxifying not just our body, but toxifying our environment. Again, where are you in your relationships? Maybe there's some people that you're giving too much time and energy to that you shouldn't be giving to them, right? So maybe it's time to take a step back and really evaluate who are your most supportive people to help you through the process, right? And if some of those people are not the right people, then you might need to shift how you're spending your time and energy. So detoxification is a place to start. Obviously, with nutrition, I talked a little bit about triggers. Alcohol is a trigger. Sometimes nightshades are a trigger. Caffeine and coffee types of things can be triggers. So what is the type of nutrition, and how do you build in the good support for yourself, like the omega-3s? And are you getting the right amount of protein? Are you eating fruits and vegetables, fiber? I came in on the tail end of you having that conversation. Nutrition is another pillar that we really need to think about. That hormonal balance. I mean, certainly we can't do specific testing for estrogen and progesterone, but we certainly can look at cortisol, which is our stress hormone. We can look at your adrenal glands. You can look at those. Are you starting to have higher cholesterol? What's going on with your blood sugars? What's going on with your insulin levels? Do you have metabolic syndrome? Are you starting to have belly fat around the midsection? So there are tests that we can do for those types of things to support your body to get you out of that deficiency state. right? So hormone and hormonal balance, and then fitness and exercise. Sometimes when I'm working with people, Coach Nick, I know we've talked about this before. If you're 10, 20, 30 pounds overweight, just losing that 5 or 10 pounds, you're not carrying it around anymore, then you're ready to do exercise. So it's not automatically, run to the gym, but it's starting to feel good and better in your body, reducing inflammation if that's what's happening in your body, so that you can do the type of fitness that you need to do. And then how do you become part of a community? Absolutely, speaking with a menopause expert like Coach Nick or myself, so you have an idea about what's going on. Being in a community where you can ask questions, or if you're more introverted, you can listen to other people that are asking questions to understand the perspective of what is exactly happening to you at this point in time. These are all areas that I work with women, I've worked with individuals, and Coach Nick has really pushed me to think about, how do you create a menopause community? How do you do something where it's a group activity, not a one-on-one activity, where women get to tell their stories, and in telling their stories, maybe learn and uncover things that are going on for themselves in their life, and help some other woman, because her story is the same story that's coming out of your mouth. And so these are the five um, areas that I always focus on, or pillars that I focus on around treatment, to help women go through this process and reset and reclaim themselves on the other side. So doing that then gets you on the other side. There is research for women to know that you get to the other side of this menopausal transition, and you actually feel better, you feel calmer, you're more confident, you're actually able to um, know yourself as you've gone through this experience, and you are ready to then take yourself into the world and take your gifts into the world and help people from a different lens. You're no longer just the mother, but you're a wise woman who is ready to take on the world and her passions in a new way. So
Mm.
that's the gift.
Ah, love it. I love it. You said wise woman, words of wisdom when the menopause expert is in a room, and especially from a holistic approach. That is the beauty of this conversation, because we didn't mention traditional medication for reason. We're getting to the root of where we are as women. And, as we mentioned, lifestyle changes just seem like, oh, it's just so simple. No, somebody needs to write a script. What is happening here? And, you know, there's no one size fits all approach um, to a treatment plan. However, the baseline with everything, which is why I loved having Dr. Day come in here and share, because a good expert in health for women is going to chip away at the layers of the foundation of your health first. And that is what your journey in menopause is. So I hope that you were able to get a lot of your questions answered, because, we're conditioned from a traditional perspective, right? Just lay it out. What do I need? What do I need to pick up and grab? And at the end of the day, perimenopause and menopause is an opportunity for us to reset, evaluate our health as a whole. Another note on that is how uh, we are at a higher risk for heart complications, heart disease, because of the hormonal changes.
Mhm.
And so, if we're already fighting or battling a few things from a chronic perspective, Dr. Day mentioned metabolic syndrome, which is a combination of chronic conditions like your diabetes, hypertension, got that cholesterol is elevated. It's a cocktail for stress on the heart. But just a rich conversation. The audio is being recorded for a reason, because I know I'm going to go back and rewind a few takeaways before we get Dr. Day. We're going to have you put your information in the chat as well. My final question is always, what would you tell a woman? What is the first thing? It may be a summary, but the first thing or the main thing that you want her to keep in mind, you may have just said it, but we're going to emphasize it. And for all of you here that are still hanging out, we wanted to make sure that we got your email address so that we can do a follow-up email to reintroduce you to Dr. Day and just keep you in a loop of how we're supporting women's health. So, Dr. Day, take it away.
So
What's
the
that
one
advice?
thing, yeah, the one thing that I would say is you're not crazy, right? The first thing that I would say to any woman that's going through the perimenopausal, menopausal, and says something's not right with my body and I don't know what it is, you are not crazy. It is important for you to know yourself and to trust yourself before you trust anyone else. And if something is off, then you know that it's off and that you need to trust that. So that's the first thing that I would say. And then I would say, after that, then you certainly need to find someone who's willing to listen and help you understand where you are in the process. And a lot of women have shared some of the things that they have been going through. So the memory loss and the weight gain and um, the body changing, and yes, yes, yes to all these things that were put in the chat. Those are part of the perimenopausal process. So you are not crazy. You see yourself, something is changing. It's normal. And how do we support your body so that you can go through it with the most grace, and that you can go through it and still have energy, and have laughs and have some joy, and deal with the hard things that are also changing in your body. Like, the things that are changing in your body may be uncomfortable. It's temporary. You're not crazy. It's temporary. And you need to support yourself and your body.
Love it. I should see the reactions going. Love it, love it, love it. We appreciate you being here, Dr. Day. We're going to have our beautifuls follow up with you. As we conclude the night, I see the thumbs up, I see the hearts. Love it. Beautifully Well in 30 Days has just dropped. I put that link in the chat. We'll follow up with it. Dr. Day mentioned some of those lifestyle changes. If you're that person, you want to be able to write through, you want to have some guidance and some tips, you want to simplify the process, the link is in the chat.
Can I share
So,
one thing?
yes, please do.
So I'm actually going to be doing some conversations. I'm going to be doing menopause milestones for melanated women on LinkedIn, and I will be doing them starting October 14th. So Mondays, the 14th, the 21st, and the 28th, with another naturopathic woman doctor. It'll either be Dr. Danielle Lewis or it'll be Dr. Courtney Roberts. So we decided we wanted to do some melanated conversations in LinkedIn. So if you want to pop into LinkedIn and find me, Dr. Daemon Jones, Daemon is the name, my name, the way it's spelled, then we will send you information about doing that. And it'll just be naturopathic doctors talking about different aspects of menopause in the month of October. So we are really hoping to just help people be more educated.
Oh, I love it. When we send the email, we'll be sure to include Dr. Day's LinkedIn information if we could get those dates so that we can set that up too, so we can make sure we can tune in live or even catch the replay.
Yes.
That would be awesome. So you see what happens when you hang out in Club Beautiful. I hope
Yeah,
so.
yeah, yeah.
This has been awesome, Dr. Day. We thank you. The tribe is the
Woo-hoo.
vibe. All the beautifuls who showed up, out the healthy lifestyle ladies who hung out for a late night. This is a gift. We have that follow up email coming to you. Check the chat. Keep looking out for emails between tomorrow morning and the afternoon. Reach out with questions and thank you for joining. You know the slogan, you're already beautiful. Let's get beautifully well.